Welcome back to Rainier Avenue. Rainier Avenue. It's our headquarters here at 4916 Rainier Avenue South, the Columbia City Theater, the historic Columbia City Theater. And we have a wonderful guest today, and someone who I have been looking to catch up with for several months. A person I think we're all familiar with. And I'm so glad to see that she is, you look rested. This, of course, is the city council member, will always be city council member, the Honorable Tanya Woo. Welcome to Juan on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited.
It's so good to see you, and it's so good to see you rested and relaxed. What's it like? What's it like not to have to do this all summer?
Oh my gosh, I felt like an active rest. Like I've been trying to calm down and working on a lot of projects and serving on a couple of boards and volunteering a lot. So I'm very much involved behind the scenes and trying to do a lot of things. And so, but it's been a great summer so far. So I'm very excited to be able to.
It's interesting having run for office. People understand the ambition behind it. People, I think, understand some of the aspects of the public things that they see. I mean, and people are like, oh, when is there going to be a candidates forum and those types of things. It is so much work. I mean, I can't imagine the last 2 summers for you and your family. It is so much work, and then to even think about the potential. I mean, after the election, and then of course after council member yes, thank you, Councilmember Morales, Tammy, Councilmember Morales, right here in our district, she drops out. And there was talk, Jesus, is Tanya going to run again? And I'm like, boy, would you want to do that a third consecutive summer?
Oh my gosh, it was just nonstop these last 2 years. And, I was so tired. My family's tired. And so I thought I'd take the summer off and just regroup and recuperate and then keep going forward. And I do plan to run again. I love my community. This is my home. I don't plan on going anywhere else.
Tell me about that. You love your community. You are so active, and people who follow you on Facebook, people who see you in the community, people know you. Your passion is for the international district, the ID, as we call it here in Seattle, and you are so active, and you're at events. You are celebrating people. You are celebrating the works of people. You are celebrating, and then also not only celebrating, but you're also trying to make sure that people are safe in your community, and obviously your work around public safety. Where does that come from?
Oh, it comes from growing up in South Seattle and Beacon Hill, and now I live in Rainier Beach. And just walking around and seeing what's happening. I live next to the Rainier Beach Community Center, on the street boat ramp. And so we hear gunshots almost every night. And then going to the Chinatown International District, where I spend a lot of my time, and seeing 12th and Jackson. And I was there yesterday, and there was a shooting there yesterday, unfortunately. And at the same time, this is the 1-year anniversary of the death of Sam Green, who was shot outside a after-hours nightclub. Right. And so a lot of those things that I saw last year helped motivate me to complete some legislation, especially regulating after-hour nightclubs. Mm-hmm. Wanted to make sure that a lot of my budget items that we passed last year actually got distributed into the community for safety ambassadors, for We Live Care, mobile medication units, and tiny home villages, things like that. I wanted to make sure I saw it to the end. So I'm still a bit active behind the scenes, and I know like budget season is coming up for the Seattle City Council, so making sure that many groups know how to advocate for themselves in terms of trying to get resources and funding from next year's budget.
Let's go back for the last couple of years and talk about the highs and lows. I remember the first conversation we had, and you and I had a nice phone conversation when you were running. And it's so true, because a lot of people didn't know who you were at the time, and you were taking on Tammy Morales, and who had been in that seat for her, I believe that was the end of her first term, and taking over for the mayor after the mayor got elected to actually Bruce had stepped down. So then I think Tammy Morales had actually beat Mark Solomon. So all of these characters started to come together, right? So you take on Councilmember Morales, and you go through this roller coaster on the night of the election. And I remember we went down to your celebratory committee, and Cindy Laws and I were there after we did our show here on Rainier Avenue Radio, and it looked like you were going to be the city council member out of District 2. Then all of a sudden they do the votes, and the votes come in, and all of the absentees get counted, which has been a problem that I've had in our elections recently. And then all of a sudden Morales comes back, and similar to another political candidate here in Seattle, seems to take over takes over the lead, and she wins. Then we have our good friend Teresa Mosqueda.
Yes.
She goes to the King County Council. That opens up an at-large seat, and there were 8 people in that. And I can't remember all the people, and maybe yours truly was somewhere in that mix, but you were able to get that position. You're on the city council with much ballyhoo and as much excitement as any new council candidate could be. You go through 6 months, and you do some really, really good work. You do really good work, and then all of a sudden you run into Alexis Mercedes Rink, and I've studied that race so many times. I still don't understand the numbers, and you come out on the shorter end of that. Tell us how all of that your 2.5 years went.
Oh my gosh, it was a total roller coaster ride. I mean, like my first run, I didn't run to run against Councilmember Morales. I ran because I wanted to talk about issues in our community. And that election night, that was rough. But I was fully aware. I had amazing mentors and consultants who were like, there could be an 8 to 10 points difference or change over the next couple of weeks, because that night we tend to drift to the left when it comes to more ballots coming in later. And so I was aware that there could be a switch up. I was hoping there wouldn't be, so I was a little bit disappointed, but right away I decided that I really wanted to go after the appointment to position 8 and started working towards that. And I don't think people realize how much work it is to go after appointments. I mean,
how much
trying to get people to turn out for you, and phone calls and letters, and trying to get your message out there, making sure the council members know who you are. And so I immediately segued into that, and then was really delighted and lucky to get the appointment, and was working full time and campaigning full time for a couple of months, and it was just all encompassing. I mean, I don't think I slept more than 4 hours per night for that entire summer.
That's the part a lot of people don't understand, because they think about running a political campaign. You were a city council member on top of running a political campaign. To explain to people just everything that comes along with that.
Oh my goodness, like especially being a newer Seattle City Council member and trying to run a campaign at the same time. You're trying to figure out the office and trying to pass policies and trying to get all your priorities across at the same time, trying to run a campaign and trying to get your messaging out. I was mostly known in District 2, but how do I get message out to the entire city, especially in the presidential election year when the stakes are much higher and there are more people who are voting. And so since this was a precedent year where there hasn't been a local city council election during a presidential election, no one knew which way it was going to go. And so I worked really hard, and fortunately it didn't go in my direction, but I learned a lot and plan to stay very much involved and have been. What
share with me, and please be on. I always try to be like Oprah on this. just the sheer frustration, simply because you did a very credible job as a Seattle City Council member. You were very active. You were very visible. When we think about communities of color, and I think there's been this. It's such an interesting conversation. Whether you're slightly more conservative or you're slightly more, and obviously our community, and from the district Democratic parties, it seems to be this term progressive. You can't be progressive enough, and certainly the mayor. He ran as this moderate to almost a semi-conservative leader in terms of crime and public safety and some of the issues around the homelessness, and he was able to as mayors try to do, get a consensus on the council, and that was Saka, and that was Moore, and that was Robert, and that was Tanya, and that was Hollingsworth, and he's able to get that. Yet you go out and you run. You have the support of the business community, but you had a lot of people from a variety of different communities supporting you. How frustrating was it to watch your campaign and some of the things that people were saying last summer in regards to support for Alexis Mercedes Rank as this progressive candidate? When, I mean, how progressive do you need to be?
Yeah, I mean, you can't out progressive. I mean, it's not coming to out progressive each other. But yeah, it was really frustrating last year because I was just so busy with the council and with trying to run a campaign that I feel like I didn't adequately get a chance to tell my story to the entire city of Seattle. And unfortunately, because I was so busy, I feel like a lot of people told that story for me, but not in my voice. And it's all politics, and especially in the year where we had a Trump campaign, unfortunately. And so no, they're saying, when Trump is in power, like we as Seattle will skew further left. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens this year in terms of politics. And I think the mayor is well positioned himself. I mean, usually when we come to see elections, there's always the labor candidate and the business candidate. And the mayor has positioned himself as both. He's got MLK Labor's endorsement. He just passed a B&O tax that helps small businesses while causing these larger businesses to pay their fair share. And so I think he's made some moves that well position him for this year's election.
But are you surprised at all when I looked and I saw the Seattle Times article that he has raised about $600,000, and the opponent, and I can't remember her name, is it Katie Wilson, and she's almost raised $500,000.
Wow.
She's raised $500,000, and I think he has spent far more than she has.
Mm-hmm.
I think she may have, at least I think in the article that I saw the other day. But I mean, I was sort of surprised simply at where's that money coming from? Where's that support against him coming from?
Well, I think both candidates are doing democracy vouchers. So I think we'll have to, because of democracy vouchers, we have the independent expenditure campaign where all this outside money is coming from.
What's the limit on democracy vouchers? How much of the democracy vouchers can you accept?
I think it's for mayor. I don't quote me on this. I have to double check, but like 450.
Okay. Somewhere around there?
Yeah, somewhere around there, and then it's different for all city versus district candidates. But these independent expenditures that come in on behalf of these candidates, the candidates have no control over, are from all over. And so we'll have to check the PDC to see exactly where that money is coming from. But usually it's labor unions and organizations, individuals contributing, and then businesses also contributing to these IEs as well.
Councilmember, tell us about the mechanics of running a campaign. It is such a they're so unique.
Yes,
they are so dynamic. There is so much that goes into them. And they are so personal. And whenever there is criticism levied against a campaign, it hurts whenever you hear good things about the campaign. And you can never hear enough good stuff because you're always so critical. And obviously your name's on the yard sign. Tell us about the whole mechanics, and tell us about your two particular campaigns in the last 2 summers.
Oh, so interesting how different they were, because the first one was a district campaign, the second was an all city. And so for districts, it's all about the ground game, knocking on doors, meeting constituents at where they're at, going to the forums, getting people to know your story and making sure you reach out to individuals. With all city, it was how can you get the most high profile through earned media, like radio, TV, newspapers, and going to community events and getting people to know who you are, and mailers. And so each campaign was very different. But for the district one, I had the most fun because I got to meet people. I think I knocked on about 18,000 doors. And it was especially tough in District 2 because I believe that year only 11,000 people turned out to vote. It's a very low number. So you have to knock on twice as many doors as voters. And so, but
the personal contact is that's a level of retail politics, especially when you run for districts.
Yes, it is. And then All City is very different. It's going to a lot of events and mailers and fundraising. And I'm so thankful for the Democracy Voucher Program. And then also, how do you get people excited to vote? And for my race, I heard there were a lot of first-time voters, people who we were able to reach, who got involved for the very first time. So that was really exciting to hear.
This is council member. She will always be council member. Once you're elected, you're elected. And Tanya Woo served on the Seattle City Council last year in the at-large position. She was almost elected to District 2 2 years ago, and then the absentee ballots rolled in, and that seat was not a victory, but then she served, and then she ran again last summer, and unfortunately she was not selected. But fortunes, people turn lemons into lemonade, and she certainly has. It has become such a great community activist and someone who's out serving our community. And she is on Juan on Rainier on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we keep in contact with the community down here in Southeast Central Seattle and really all throughout the country and world. And it was so great to see you connecting with Tony B.
Oh my gosh, yes, I remember I see him every single weekend. The festivals.
Tony is something else.
Yes, he's amazing. Oh my God, he's a force to reckon with.
He really is. He's doing some great things. Have you met his daughter?
No.
Taylor Karina. Oh my goodness, Taylor Karina is down in Los Angeles. Just graduated from the University of Southern California.
Wow.
She is a Trojan, and he is so proud of her, as she should be. And I remember her when she was interning with us and doing her stuff here at the radio station. And hopefully we will get to see Taylor Karina again. But she's down there. Hopefully hopefully Tony will bring her back. But she is such a sweetheart and doing such great things. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She is an activist, and she's also another force to be reckoned with, let me tell you. If you could go back and tell the city of Seattle, and you're sort of doing it in your own way right now, but if you could go back and tell your story again, what would you tell them that people missed?
That's a good question. Oh, I think it's being born and brought up here in Seattle. I was a fifth generation Seattleite. My family immigrated here in the late 1800s, and then my mom being an immigrant, a newer immigrant who had to escape two political regimes to get here. I think the story I would tell is, we need to listen to each other and be kind to each other and really advocate for our neighborhood and for ourselves. And how we do that is make sure that we vote, because how our city will react in terms of the national politics is really important for the next 2 or 3 years. Especially here in District 2. We have some amazing candidates. I can't pick one just yet on who I love, so I'm waiting to see who will come out of the primaries.
You're Alexander Hamilton.
Oh my gosh, yes.
People get to wait. People get to wait to see who you're selecting. Or you can just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many great candidates. I got to know most of them. So I'm going to see who makes out the primaries before endorsing one.
Hey, you and I are both kids from the South Seattle area. I'm obviously a little bit older kid than you are, but nevertheless, we grew up down here. We know the issues down here, and we grew up in an environment down here where obviously with the Black and Latino community, which I still will always be a part of and look to serve, obviously in the various aspects of the Asian American community, where there needs to be leadership and there needs to be a voice, and certainly that was one of the many things that was discussed when you were running, and the history of Cheryl Chow and Dolores Sabanga and Gary Locke and Martha Cho and so many people who have served from this community. I think that there's not an Asian American on the Seattle City Council right now is almost foreign, but you were holding on to that void. And then there's the aspect of running for office that you and I both know about, where we have to be able to articulate that we have a connection with our own community, yet without in these large expanses of the city, we have to be able to communicate in a way that people can understand us and connect with us in those areas as well. How was that when you're working and you were gaining and galvanizing the respect and the leadership within our Asian American community, our Southeast Seattle community, and in our people of color community, and at the same time you're looking to these areas of the city that are so different than some of our neighborhoods here in South Seattle?
Yeah, that was really interesting because I think what actually got me started and what inspired me to run was not only I knew Auntie Cheryl and I had some amazing mini mentors growing up, but like the fact that I feel like the city didn't know how to do this outreach to our minority communities. Even though there is a racial equity toolkit that teaches them how to do this outreach, especially in language and making sure they reach out to different associations that serve people. But just felt like, especially in certain pockets of South Seattle, that we were being ignored in a way. And so how do we rise up? How do we be loud? How do we tell our voice when it's not something that is culturally ingrained growing up? Like we were taught to like not make waves growing up. And so how do we change that and make sure that we're being heard and we get the adequate resources we need to thrive here in South Seattle? I mean, it's not just, it's all our small businesses that employ people. It's safety in our neighborhoods. And how do we get our kids, especially people who just immigrated here, how do they get the children into organizations and programs that will help them thrive at the same time when parents are working full time? And so how do we come together? I believe like, especially what was interesting citywide was how unique and how special and how different District 2 in South Seattle was. Right. And how different it was compared to North Seattle, and how that outreach and that engagement is different. And
it's so interesting. Some of my conservative friends, and I like to consider myself a radical moderate, but the issue is that we're not pushing over and we're not asking for anything special. When you think about communities of color here, we want our schools to be we want our schools to be great so our kids can get a great education and make sure that they are able to take advantage of the public services that are available. And I think some of the things that have happened recently in these conversations is that we have really, the conversation about, it's almost like it's, you're a progressive or you're woke in some of the language when you're looking to make sure that the essential services are excellent, and so that we have that promise that we want for our children, so they can they can get into a good school, so they can build themselves a foundation to base their career and their life on. And it just seems like we've almost kind of gotten away from that.
Yeah, I feel like last year, especially last year, was a lot of people calling me a Republican because I consider myself a progressive, but having people tell my story in a way that that was black and white versus that gray area, and instead of focusing on the issues, was trying to categorize me as someone who I didn't believe I was. And so I think that that's the difficult part of all political campaigns, is that mudslinging in a way, but it's part of the territory. So it's just making sure that you stay strong and that you know who you are, and you keep your eye on the goal and really fight for what you believe in.
How difficult was it for you to step out of that office? When you're finally done and you see Alex Mercedes Ring come in and she takes the oath of office, and 7 months before, it was such a high in January, and you gave a magnificent speech to come in after the appointment. How difficult was that for you? And what was the personal? There's always a little bit of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross on Death and Dying. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. How long did it take you to go from denial to acceptance?
Oh, I'll admit it was tough, and I was sad for quite a bit. And I had amazing mentors and friends who were like, it's going to take a while to get over it. But I had some amazing colleagues in the Seattle City Council who became great friends, and they had promised that they would help finish the work I had started, especially with some legislation and budget items. And so I was excited that they were going to carry on some of the work I had started, and they promised that they would fight for South Seattle. And I love Councilmember Mark Solomon. I'm so glad that he was able to.
He's wanted to be a Seattle City Council member so bad.
Oh my gosh, yes.
He's one, and I was texting you, and I was saying, don't say you're just going to be the stopgap, because he's worked so hard.
Yes.
And he's such a good guy. And he's a community organizer, community activist. He's not a politician. And he's like, Juan, I'm going to go ahead and I'll be the stopgap. And I'm so glad he got the opportunity.
Yes, he's doing amazing work on the city council right now. And so we're all very excited about all the things that's coming from his office, and we're excited about the D2 elections and seeing who will step into his place. And I was very excited that a lot of my staff members were rehired into his office. And so, but being out of office for the last couple of months, seeing the work trickle down on the ground level has been amazing. Seeing a lot of budget items being deployed and making a difference in the community, and people asking me questions about what's happening and trying to help people reach City Hall, especially. So I'm enjoying my time organizing from the ground. I feel like sometimes you are more effective working from the ground versus being in the city council.
When we come back from break, we're going to talk about working from the ground on your community radio station with one of the best people who works right now from the ground up, Tanya Woo. We will be right back.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey Seattle, here are some storage tips to love food, stop waste. Onions make potatoes sprout faster. Keep onions away from potatoes. Ripe bananas give off a gas that makes the fruit around them ripen faster. Store bananas away from other fruits. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
Hey Seattle, tune in to Lidline Sports every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
What up, yo? We are back. This is Pep, and the man that don't take no mess, Mr. O-P-I-S, Mr. Stevenson. What say you?
I hope you see the hat that I'm wearing right now. That's how mad I am.
I do. Man, you are angry.
I just want to make that be known.
Tune in to Lidline Sports every Monday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Lidline Sports.
The climate crisis is here, and communities most impacted are standing up. This is Earth Deserves More Than a Day, hosted by Rainier Avenue Radio and King County Parks. From elected officials, grassroots leaders, from river tours to cultural art, we gather to take action. Listen in. Learn more, then get involved, because the Earth can't wait, and neither can we.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Queen Bree, inviting you to come join me on Clean Greens Living, broadcasted Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. On Clean Greens Living, we talk farming, community, and ways to being healthy. So come join me and let's discuss ways to create a healthier you and a healthier community.
A teacher who hurt their back and got prescribed opioids. A daughter trying to cope with a loss in the family. A friend silently struggling, thinking they'll be a burden if they ask for help. People with addiction come from all walks of life, and the truth is they stand a better chance at recovery with our support. Reaching out and sharing local resources can make all the difference. Don't count them out. More people recover with support. Find more ways to help at supportaddictionrecovery.com. That's supportaddictionrecovery.com.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world.
We are back on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, with Councilmember Tanya Woo, who's with us today, and we're just sitting here chopping it up about not having to run for the first time in 3 summers. Tanya has like summer where, I'm doing select baseball. I'm out watching baseball games in suburban parks all over getting ready to go to Spokane for a tournament over there in a couple of days, and I'll be hanging out with my son and having a good time. My wife decided that she was going on vacation this year without us, so she and Araceli they went to Hawaii, so they've been down
Oh.
on the islands having a good time.
You need to go on
She goes,
vacation on your own too now.
I gotta get these kids out of high school first, and then I will take a deep breath. But it's wonderful to have them when you have them before they take off. But yeah, I'm glad to see I hope that and Honey and Treat, I hope you guys are having a great time on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. You were talking about it before we went to break. Your mission has changed now, and I have to admit, it's been amazing, and I say this as much as I admire you. You looked Lexus Mercedes right in the eye. You shook her hand. You said, "Welcome, best of luck." No complaining, no yelling and screaming, no community rebel rousing, and you took a little bit of time off, and then you went back to work. You started getting involved in community activities. You started showing up at events. You started staying out and watching some of the issues around crime and things going on in your community. Give everybody an idea of what you've been doing since you kind of came back to doing things in the community again.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest projects I'm working on is 12th and Jackson,
Mhm.
and that area, and trying to help the small businesses in that area,
It's a
especially
tough
come
area.
back
Tough
ahead
area.
of FIFA World Soccer next
Mhm,
year,
mhm.
and also we just had an opening of Hoi Mai Park in Little Saigon, and unfortunately that park was built for young children, for our 5 to 10-year-olds to play in the little structure there. Fortunately, they're not able to go to that park, and so early in the year, the King County Metro closed down the bus stop along that area. There were a lot of public safety concerns. There were shootings and high crime events. And so it really hurt me to see that area. It didn't always used to be like that. So dived head in. I'm there all the time. And trying to help deploy a lot of the budget items that the city council last year had passed for that area with different safety ambassadors and We Live for Care going in there and lead and making sure that funding continues throughout the year so we can actively tackle and try to help people get services, come back inside, to fight their addictions, and help the small businesses, because we will be in the world stage in about a year and we want to look our best.
Well, but why has that portion of the International District, that eastern border up on 12th Avenue where it intersects with Jackson, why has that become such a dubious area right now? It's just one where you have so many things going on, and what can be done? What can be done to eliminate some of the stuff that's going on there?
Yes, and so this was an issue that there had always been issues in that area, but it just really exploded during the pandemic, where we had a lot of illegal vending, and then folks would come into the businesses in that area, break into them, and bring those goods to sell. And then when fentanyl drugs came to Seattle, in its various forms, that just made everything so much worse. We're also very close to the hospitals, so a lot of people who just get discharged find themselves back on 12th and Jackson, unfortunately. So there has been ongoing issues from the pandemic. A lot of the community there are frustrated, and it's not within the Asian culture to really speak up and to fight, to advocate for themselves. And so how do we make sure that we get the resources that downtown's core is getting into that area as well? And so very excited to see things like having safety ambassadors, which downtown has had for 2 or 3 years, We Live for Care, security, and other folks who are servicing the area finally come into 12th and Jackson. And now that summer has started, we're seeing, since people have been pushed out of downtown into 12th and Jackson, King, Weller area, and even, behind the Goodwill, because they have no place else to go. We're worried that there will be some turf wars and some fighting, as we saw earlier this year with some of the stabbings. And this is not our community. This is not our neighborhood. We're so much more than that. And so I think what's really going to take is making sure that all the government agencies are able to service the area. The care department doesn't go to that area. We have to make sure we pay special attention. For a while, their parks department, the rangers weren't going to Hoi Mai Park. And so how do you make sure that we concentrate our efforts in that area, make sure there are resources there, and we don't ignore what people are saying and what they're seeing? I think, not only is there drug use, drug sales, which what caused that shooting yesterday, but a lot of EBT fraud, fencing, which is the sale of stolen goods, which is tough in that area. And there are some changes. I'm hearing that, we put camera CCTV in that area, which there's a lot of opposition, but those cameras are helping because there was a shooting there and officers are able to see who did the shooting and are able to go after and pick him up. And so that's helpful that we don't have a shooter running around who we don't know.
Why so many shootings?
It's, if you look at the grand scale of things, it's not that many, but I think it's because there are a lot of drug sales in that area, unfortunately. And when you get that mix of drugs and people and needs and wants in that area, it kind of escalates in a way. And so unfortunately, it's all concentrated in that area right now. It looks terrible. I mean, there's fencing and barbed wire, and that's just not our community. You want to go back to how it used to be prior to the pandemic.
People always ask what do candidates do when they're in these candidates forums. You and I were on the end of the table,
yes,
on the very left side of the table together, and we were having a great conversation down at the end. And what people don't understand is, like, what were you guys talking about? Like, we talk about personal things, we talk about family, and you were telling me that you were a dancer. You danced.
Oh yes,
remember that we were having this conversation.
Yeah.
Are you still dancing? Tell me what is fun for you. Do you still are you still participating in those types of activities? Are you dancing? Are you finding time to take on some of your own personal passions right now?
Yeah, I am. I'm going back to all of the hobbies I used to do before I started running 2 years ago. I feel like my life has been on hold for the last 2 years. I performed at the Rainier Festival in Chinatown International District back in February, and I volunteer now with the Seattle Chinese Community Girls Drill Team.
Very nice.
Every Saturday we practice in the parking lots at Chunghwa Playfield, and really enjoying my time connecting with community and with people, and going to festivals and fairs, celebrations, and not having to campaign is the best thing ever.
Not having to campaign and not having to ask for money.
Yes, asking for money, asking for phone calls or volunteers.
What? Tell me about Randy. Tell me what house. Tell me about who I've met briefly. Tell me about Randy. Tell me about tell us all about yourself. It's just when we know you as this public figure who does these political things, but you're a human being. You have family. You have a husband. Tell us about what he does, and I'm sure he's probably glad to be off the treadmill for some.
Yeah, he's very kind. He was like, if you want to run again, I support you. But he was like, I'm really tired. I'm like, I know. We're all so tired. So we'll just take a break. And beginning of last year, I'm sure you heard, my father-in-law, Randy's dad, has worked at Cow Cow Restaurant for over 50 years. It was his first job when he immigrated to Seattle. And so when the original owners of the restaurant wanted to retire, so Randy's dad took over the restaurant. So now he went from dishwasher, meat chopper to business owner, and he loves it. He's about 82 years old. He's there every single day. You can't get him to retire. And so Randy does work a full-time job. When he's done at 1 or 2, 3 o'clock, he will go to the restaurant to be with his dad. And so we've had the restaurant for 1.5 years, and it's just been amazing. It's one of the 2 legacy restaurants in the Chinatown International District, right across from the Louisa Hotel, which is a building that I helped save. And I think it's really interesting because now we're coming across difficulties when it comes to affordable housing. Louisa Hotel, we have a 20% vacancy rate. 40% of our tenants are not able to pay rent. Only 40% of the people in that building are actually paying rent. And next year, we're looking at possible sale because we just can't keep up, and so we might be forced to have to sell portions of the building to new investors, and at that point we're going to have to make a difficult decision. Are we able to continue to do affordable housing, or will we have to go to market rate housing? And so a lot of these difficulties, I think, is something that I will be facing and my family facing the next year, along with running a restaurant, and the larger themes of how do we help save our several family businesses. Like there's several restaurants here in South Seattle, several buildings that are for sale because families just can't make it. And how do we look at that on a larger scale to help stop gentrification, displacement, and be able to allow for people to be able to continue to work and live here
in the city, and also to keep some of the traditional heritage of our communities for those of us who grew up here. And it's just so interesting right now that the idea is slowly starting to change. You can almost feel it a little bit in terms of the ways that you're talking. And I hope that we're able to, the Central District, for example, has changed so much. And for those of us who grew up here, and of course, I mean, I'm a realist, and I get it. And people are they're going to move out of certain communities, and things are going to change. But it just seems like the central area was a soul. There was a soul to it. There's a vibrancy to it.
Yes.
And certainly, there's a lot of my friends who have either sold their properties or could not maintain their properties and have ended up moving to Kent, Auburn, and areas outside in Renton and the East Hills and so forth, which is great, and I understand from a business perspective. But it is nice to see, and I know that Governor Locke, I know that Executive Sims, and I know Norm Rice. They talk about that. Former Mayor Rice. They get together and they talk about different decisions that they made in regards to the train, and if they had done a couple of things different, maybe that would have had changed some of the things that have gone on. But it's interesting right now because, and we're starting to see it a little bit in the Rainier Valley as well. We're starting to lose the soul of our city a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the comprehensive plan that the city is looking at right now is going to play a big part in accelerating those changes and making sure that, we have to make sure that, we're able to mindfully build more housing, but at the same time, how do we help families stay here who have lived here their entire lives and not get forced out?
You had some interesting folks you went into the city council with, and let me just talk to some of you. First of all, our dear friend, Councilmember Moore, who said, and I'd love to have fun with myself. I love that. I thought she said to herself, "I'm out of that. Come on, this is she." I've always felt that she's intellectual. Yes. She's an intellectual. She is someone who is so smart. She is someone who is, she's a former judge. Yes. And to be on the city council, and she cited some reasons, and I hope that she's able. If it's health, I encourage everybody to take care of their health. Yes. That's number one. Yes. But I wonder at times how frustrating it is to be a council member on the Seattle City Council when she probably just said, something, I can go on vacation myself. Have you had a chance to talk with her?
I chatted with her briefly when she made her announcement, and she told me, like, your health is worth so much more than your job. And I'm hoping to meet up with her for lunch when everything's slowed down. But yeah, she works so hard. She was one of the council members that would stay in the office till 2 a.m. and making sure that she was prepared the next day for all her work. And she would be there on the weekends. She worked so hard, was so passionate about helping North Seattle. And a lot of people love her. They love what she did for Rainier Avenue North and for different areas like Pinehurst. And so it was very sad to see her go, but I mean, it was good for her, but bummer for us. and I know this was an easy decision for her because I know she loved her position and her job and helping people so much. And
how shocked were you when Councilmember Morales stepped down?
Oh, I was very shocked. I didn't see that one coming.
Did she call? Did she call you? Did you have any relationship whatsoever? Did she call and say, hey,
No, I had no idea. I was really shocked in a way and surprised. And I think this was a week after they had certified the election results in early December. And so I knew that she was leaving and she probably had a plan and something she wanted to get done and a plan for the transition. But yeah, I don't think any of us knew she was going to do that.
It was so weird, in my opinion. I'm sorry, and I want to use technical English language, but it was weird. When I woke up, my wife sent me the text, And I was just like, considering she had just run for the year before, but the reason that she gave in her letter, it's almost like, well, okay, it's politics.
Mm-hmm.
You're leaving because it's politics. It's a political body, and you're leaving because there is politics going on.
Yeah, and I think it was very tough for her because a lot of the council members were very much in line with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she had her own agenda and her own views and things that she wanted to get done, but she didn't necessarily have the votes to get things done.
Not even close.
Yeah, so I think it was very tough for her, and I think she made the decision that was right for her in her own way. And I haven't seen her, but she is quite active with the 37th Democrats.
Rob Saka, who I know is a friend of yours, friend of mine. He's an issue. I don't think I don't know how many people in the Southeast Seattle area and our traditional areas over here know him. But characterize Rob for us. How was it to work with him as a city council member? How do you feel he's doing, and what are his prospects as he's trying to lift himself into more visibility in West Seattle?
Yes, I think Rob's in a tough position. I mean, I feel West Seattle is very divided in a way, and he's trying to do the best that he can and help as many people as he can. And there's always two sides of a story. But he's an amazing guy. He's a good guy, and he tries so very hard to make everybody happy. And he works very hard to understand both sides of the issue. He has his views. He has very strong views, but he's always willing to listen.
Smart guy.
So yes,
Smart guy.
I know I can always come to him for advice and mentorship. And I just saw him at the Pride Parade with his two young boys, and they had so much fun. And so he's out there. I heard he's doorbelling his constituents and chatting and reaching out to people. And so he works very hard.
Joey Hollingsworth, and it was funny because Joey called me, geez. I was at the 37th district, not the 37th district Democrats. I go to too many meetings. I was at the Lesha, my neighborhood community council, and we had the new police chief, Sean Barnes, there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you heard about that. And there's the Denny Blaine situation going on. So
yes.
It was filled with Denny Blaine people who were there for that whole conversation, which is a very, very interesting conversation in regards to having that particular beach and where it's situated in that part of Councilmember Hollingsworth district. And by the way, it's a very, very exclusive part of the city. And there's a lot of interesting behavior going on down there. And then you have this man from the Midwest, Sean Barnes, who could not be a nicer gentleman. And he really is. He's a gentleman, and he is the only dubious distinction that in certain periodicals I was reading is that he's a police chief. And he is a very, very nice man. And he comes to this meeting and he gets really, I think, introduced to Seattle. And I think, and I was telling myself, boy, we better sign him and get him, and make sure we get all of this paperwork, because if he, I'm sure there'll be other meetings that he'll go to, but he got a taste of Seattle that night, and the conversations were extraordinary. The situation is extraordinary. And Joey Hollingsworth called me the next day, and I said, "Girl, you would not have believed this." So, and I know that she's trying to balance and communicate with those communities, and bless her for doing that. But how is your relationship with Councilmember Hollingsworth, and do you guys connect every once in a while?
Yes, we do. I love Councilmember Hollingsworth. She's an amazing friend. Met her on the campaign trail during our first runs, and she's an amazing person. I love all that she does, and it's, being a council member is really tough, as you talked about earlier. You hear two different opposing sides. Sometimes one side's not very nice. But trying to find that balance and trying to listen and talk to people and really address the issue at the heart. I think Joy's been doing amazing at that. And she's and I'm good friends with some of her staff members. And so it's always fun to be able to go back to City Hall and see everybody again.
This is Tanya Woo. She is our former Seattle City Council member, and she is currently someone who's still very active in our communities here, not only in Central Southeast Seattle, but all over the city. And she has a wonderful reputation. She is certainly respected and well-liked by so many. And she today is on Juan on Rainier on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we bring you a variety of different things, from telling our kids stories through athletics and sports to music and entertainment. And of course, this is a political year in the city of Seattle, and we and a number of our friends, Councilmember Woo and I, are not running for office, and she's taking a respite after running consecutive years. And I am a select baseball parent, and my daughter's in the Seattle Girls Choir, so I just go to choir shows now. So I get to sit back and relax and enjoy my kids' performances and encourage them on. And we'll see what my future holds. But what my future holds right now is on Rainier Avenue Radio. I get to work with Tony B and Daniel, our scheduled to the stars, and we put on unbelievable events. If you were at our Juneteenth presentation down at Rainier Beach Safeway, Tony did a masterful job of pulling the community together, and we had a nice jazz band down there, and we were going through the Safeway, just like when I ran into you at Costco. We were just the whole things of a public figure. Yeah, there's the Councilmember Woo buying a giant thing of soap, and I'm, as you can tell, testing the food. And I was doing that at the Safeway. We get some great samples, and it's always fun. Do you want to run again?
I do want to run again. That's our plan. Take a break, start fresh. How about you? Would you ever run again?
We'll see what's there. It's really interesting, Tanya, because my daughter, who's 12 now, she's born on my birthday in Araceli. But there was talk about me running for office a couple of years ago. I think she was 10 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, and I was talking with her mom, and I was talking with her brother, Clemente, who's now become Clemente's a little bit more politically active. And he's now 17. He'll be a senior next year.
Wow.
So, but she said something really, really interesting to me that really, it was a statement that changed my life. She said, "Dad, I don't want you to run for office. I just want you to be my dad."
Oh.
And after that, I said, "Oh, well, this conversation's over."
Well, when you're older, you always
we'll see what happens when
because I'm pretty sure there's a lot.
As she's still talking to me right now. But I talk about the when you're younger. When I was younger, I wanted to be somebody, and public service certainly is a way, and politics, and there's a variety of different things. So when I was in Gary Locke's office, you get a taste of it working in the King County Executive's office. But now that you are somebody, and you have people who really look up to you, and you have two people in particular that your life and your world is connected to their world, you tend to listen a little bit more. And so as you know, timing is so, and I feel like my voice would be effective. But fortunately for me, like you, I serve on the board of the Centro de la Raza, on the Urban League board, on Children's Campaign Fund, and in the role that I have at Bloodworks Northwest. I feel like that without having one of the other sports I love to, he was going to find out what your additional hobbies were. I love golfing, and you have to, so David Faraday, the golfer, he said you have to be able to put up with the misery to get better. And I think sometimes that's in public service, you have to put up with the misery of it. And I feel like I don't have to put up with as much misery as some of these folks. And I was down in Olympia one night when we were working on some legislation down there, and they were leaving to go back. One person in particular was leaving to get back to his kids. He was leaving at 11 o'clock at night. Then he was going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go all the way down there. And I know it's during session, but boy, our elected officials make such a sacrifice.
They do.
I don't think people, it isn't as glamorous when you see it up close.
You'd see them drive back and forth every single day to Olympia and missing out on their family, kids, graduations, and different things. It's tough. The sacrifices. And, it's like you said, when we run, the first thing people tell us is check with your family first, because if your family, don't want you to, it's over. So
I will be transparent. We have this. I'm sure Sarah will love this conversation. I didn't tell Sarah about the appointment.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't tell Sarah about the appointment. So I'm driving to go visit my mother. I came back. I was watching the Huskies. I was down in Texas. I filled everything up from Texas, so I sent all the stuff in.
Wow!
And I was, and then someone told me there's 110 10 candidates. I said, okay, well, let me just throw this in there and see what happens. But I got back home after the Huskies had lost. I'm driving down to Des Moines and see my mom, who's at a assisted living facility. And I get this call from Sarah, and she said, hey.
Oh, no, you discovered.
I just heard from a friend of mine that she read in the Seattle Times, and you're one of the candidates.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
Oh, no.
You what? You got to be kidding me. Because I'm about to go visit Mom. Can we talk about it later?
Oh, my goodness.
I said, really? But it's funny. Sarah's friends were way more. They were just like, "Oh, this is going to be incredible. We're so glad he's doing it." Yes. I was like, "Oh," Sarah was just like, "Oh, we have to talk about it."
Oh no! Okay, but I'm sure she came around. I mean, the
She did.
forum. I remember we did an amazing job. You had great answers. We sat next to each other.
We have to talk. No,
Found the Bertha Landis room, and then I remember the day where they made the decision. You came up to me and you're like, "I will see you in the elections." And, I thought you were going to run, and so.
I thought I was too, and then you think about it, it's like, geez, with Clemente doing his select ball and his life. Once again, you start thinking about your kids, and the activities, and my mother is 88 and she's healthy, but it's a lot of time. There are other ways to influence.
Yes.
And impact.
Yes.
And I realize, something, I can do this, and who in the world would beat Tanya Woo?
Oh gosh, oh no, a lot of people. Well, and I think you're more effective on the ground level, like being out in the community, and you don't have to worry about being politically correct all the time,
and the responsibility to voters. Yeah, you get to speak your mind.
Yes, exactly. We advocate for what communities really need, and I think that's really important, and a lot of people are doing such important work out there that we all admire and we think would be amazing city council members, but it's a totally different level when you're working in the community from the ground and being with people and seeing what's really happening versus being in City Hall.
And Daniel Bellis and I were doing the Sea King basketball championships that winter, and we were eating a thing of Lay's potato chips and a Safeway sandwich that Tony B got for us with some lukewarm 7-Up, and I'm saying, this is the life.
Yeah,
this is the life.
Because you don't eat. You don't eat. You have no time.
What's next on the agenda for you? What you outside of running for office? Tell me you're still gonna be active in the ID. What's next for you?
Oh, I have a lot of projects I'm working on. I'm on a board, volunteering with a drill team and some other folks, and I got admitted into the UW Evans School.
Oh, are you in the Evans School?
Yeah, so I'm going to be going into my executive master's in public administrations in the fall. So I'm kind of excited about going back to school, something I never thought I'd do, but it's a 2-year program. I thought it will help position me for what's in the future.
It's a great school, no question.
Oh,
it is a pleasure. Thank you so much for being available today. It is always great to see you. I wish you nothing but the best. My phone is always on speed dial, so I'm there for you.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
And I say, obviously it's the same. Geez, I texted her this morning and she's like, I'd love to come on. So thank you very much for being a friend. So great to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me, and thanks for always being there. And I remember our first call, and it was on Zoom, and I was just it was just amazing. So, and
I'm so glad we get to see Tony B today, and then obviously he has so much respect for you. So thank you very much for being here, and we wish you the best. And this is Tanya Woo on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And we will see you next week, or we will see you whenever with another guest. Daniel will clean up how I'm supposed to finish up the show. But, always headquarters down here on 4816 Rainier Avenue South. Thank you very much for being here. We'll talk to you soon.